Hey, what's up? It's time to finish the lodge, I think. I did finish extending it a little bit this morning. Added a couple more torches because almost had a few mishaps with creepers, and yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. I did have to do a little bit of filling in. But yeah, I actually had a couple ideas. I think I'll break this out and put like a fireplace. Might be kind of neat. Have two like little, well, actually maybe farther down. Yeah, I'll figure it out. But have two little sleeping areas, maybe with bunk beds, and then make like a lean-to style roof, which just kind of slants up towards the front. It might be kind of neat. And have like a little area on the top. Why do I keep doing that? Who knows? I like spinning the camera, I guess. But yeah, might as well start with the roof, see what that looks like. Another fun day at work, you know, if you could ignore the funky sounds I'm making. Wasn't too bad overall, just customer, I guess, I didn't have to deal with it, but I guess someone called to complain because they bought the wrong item, well, the wrong version of an item. So, you know, our general thing is, yeah, okay, we'll just swap it out for you. Well, and you know, you think that would be the end of it? No. Had to complain. Like, well, you know, I didn't get what I want. You ripped me off. You gave me an item I didn't want to spend money for. I wanted the cheaper one. Like, okay, well, swap it out. Give you the cheaper one. Give you the money back. And still they complained. So it eventually got to the point where the manager who was talking to them said, look, I told you I'll give you exactly what you want. What is it you want me to do? And I'll do it. Basically conceding, like, whatever you want, we'll give it to you. And they still complained. And so when you're at a point where you're getting exactly what you want and you still complain, I think that says more about the person doing the complaining than about anything about customer service. It's like, if you're getting exactly what you want and you're still not happy, there's something definitely wrong there. But yeah, the manager had a fun time with that. Roof might not look too bad. Don't know how much room I'll have at the end, but we'll see. You know, I want to talk about comic books. Not that I read comic books really. Like, I think I enjoy the idea of comics and comic book heroes, stuff like that. I don't actually enjoy comic books, and people might hate me for this, but most of the time they're really poorly written. I don't mean specifically with dialogue, because, you know, sometimes the dialogue is good. A lot of times it's just generic, I suppose, but I guess it's more that there's not... I mean, I know it's a visual medium too, and you know, you kind of have to pander to that, but they just get some ridiculous situations going. And I know it's comics, it's supposed to be ridiculous, but it's actually, what made me start to think about this was the movie Jack Reacher. It's a pretty good movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think what I loved most about it had gun scenes, you know, gunfights, people shooting at each other, car chase scenes. Nothing was really over the top. There were no, you know, wild car flips with explosions. There were no people diving through bullets and, you know, getting hit multiple times and just walking like it's nothing. It in a way, it was, even though the situations were somewhat unrealistic overall, it was a very down-to-earth action movie. And, well, I guess it was a little bit more of a, like an investigation style movie, but it had a good share of action, and it was actually kind of refreshing not to see the over-the-top like physics and action that you get with the overly enhanced special effects, which I think have been going a little overboard. And actually a really good example is Hobbit movie. The movie itself was good. I like The Hobbit. The action scenes, though, were just ridiculous for the most part. The like the dwarves, like they're running through goblins, I should say, and they're swinging their weapons, and it's as if the goblins are just made out of paper. Like there's no mass to them whatsoever. There's no slowdown in the stride. These characters are just bolting through goblins, swinging left and right as if they're not there, and just plowing through. And it did remind me of a video game. And if I remember correctly, a few online critics had the same critique about that, I suppose, or criticism rather, that the action scenes made it feel like a video game that you were just watching. Which, as somebody who is having you watch a video game, that's one thing. But as a medium, I think, especially like an action movie like that, you kind of want a little bit more realism, I suppose, in terms of, cause and effect and physics. And although it's a fantastical world with magic, I understand that, but a sword swipe hitting a enemy should still have some reference of impact, I guess, which the movie just didn't seem to have for whatever reason. Maybe it was just an oversight on their part. I honestly don't know. It is a good movie, though. I did enjoy The Hobbit. But as far as comic books, though, like, characters are way overdone, I think. I guess you can go back to what I was saying last time, where Star Trek, for example, needs to be more of a variety show, and I think that needs to be more of a focus with comic books, especially because there's so many comic book characters, and some of them have multiple series, and it's just they wind up doing so much with these characters that there's overuse of them, I guess, and at that point I can understand why DC, I guess, wanted to cut back and restart their series. But with the 52, was it? I don't even remember. Never actually. Well, like I said, I don't really read comics. Actually, I used to, but I think what I'm enjoying more are the animated movies that both companies, Marvel and DC, both major companies, I should say, are pumping out. Those turn out to be really good, and I like the way they portray the characters there compared to the actual comic books. Because the comic books are, I guess, as part of the medium, far too varied, because they have so many different artists, so many different writers. It changes sometimes from issue to issue, and which is cool to see that from just an art appreciation standpoint. But it's I don't know. It feels like it should be a little different to me. I guess, at least for me, to enjoy comics. Which, again, I think I enjoy the animated stuff better. Just because it seems to give it a little more life, and I think I just enjoy reading written word alone better than the hybrid of that comics provide between the art and the limited writing. And this isn't too bad. Should I make that go up a level? Well, no, I'll have it taper off like it is. Maybe extend out a little more. And there it goes. And one more. But yeah, with movies, man, superhero comic book, whatever, movies are definitely taking off, or definitely have taken off. Avengers, man, that was how comics should be, I think. If comic books were more like the Avengers movie, which isn't necessarily possible with the pacing. It's hard to get some of the subtleties of character interactions, because so much of it with humans is just expression, which doesn't always carry over in the comic book format. So, I mean, some artists, I guess, can do an okay job with that, but it's basically just drawing eyebrows, different shapes. When it comes to comic books, there's not too much they can do unless they go to like a really expensive medium to portray their art. But the Superman movie in particular, I'm really looking forward to. One, I'm a big Superman fan. Two, I think they're finally taking the right kind of approach. One of the biggest problems in the comic books, and actually even with some of the animated series, is Superman doesn't really have struggles like a normal superhero would. I mean, I guess as a character, he's, by definition, he will always win. He's kind of, sort of like a biblical savior style figure, in a sense where he can't lose by the nature of his character, because he's here to be the person that saves the planet. And but what the movie seems to touch on, and which I think the comics should focus more on, at least as far as Superman, is that he's a character that has to struggle internally, I guess, more so than many others. It's not just like, from a comic geek standpoint, you have a superhero like, say, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever. They come across a tough foe and they have to fight harder to beat the foe. They have to think smart, or think faster. They have to act smarter. They have to, put out a little bit more strength than they've ever had to before. But with Superman, he's already at the top tier of what people can do. I mean, he's wicked fast. According to the comics, the Flash is a little faster. But being the second fastest person in a comic book is ridiculous. Being, the strongest person in the comic book and the second fastest in the comic books is ridiculous. Plus, being able to fly, pull off all these amazing super feats, laser beams from the eyes, and super breath, and you can pretty much invent powers on the fly. And there was actually an animated episode that dealt with that, where he was actually fighting someone who was as strong as he was. I think it was Darkseid. And he expressed this plainly, that he finally had a chance to let loose and to open up and actually fight as if he was himself, because normally everything he does is like the world is cardboard and paper to him, and the ground that he walks on is eggshells. You have to be so tense as Superman, so careful about everything you do, that you if you're not paying attention at any moment, you'll accidentally destroy, injure, or kill somebody. And I think that gives a dynamic that very few other superheroes have to deal with. I mean, I guess you could say somebody like the Hulk can get that strong, but he doesn't have the mental facilities to deal with that on an intellectual level, not normally. I know there's a few exceptions depending on which storyline and which universe, and which is another reason why comic books are ridiculous, which is also a reason why I say never take serious any argument that it's not like the comic book, because comic books are not like the comic books. They retcon them, they basically retell the stories, they change origins, they have alternate universes. There's so many variations on the same story that are retold that there is no such thing as a single unifying storyline for any character. I mean, all the X-Men have at some point died, some multiple times, but they're still around. They've gone through multiple origin stories. I mean, mostly, some of them keep key points, but in general, they've changed or been adjusted slightly, or they change who actually became a hero. In the case of, I can't even think of an example. But it gets crazy story-wise, and I don't even know how anyone can keep up with what should be actually accurate and what's not. Well, I mean, it's probably possible to keep what's current, but it's in a way, I guess that's a good thing because you can change the times. If something's not popular, like say being an alien raised by farmers, I mean, how many people actually identify with being a farmer? These days compared to back when Superman came out, decades ago, when farming was a much larger industry that more people participated in, or at least had indirect contact with. And so I guess in that way they can kind of keep up with the times, but it's still, I don't know, I'd say it's still, now I'm losing track of my train of thought. Remember last time when I said gamers lose their train of thought real easily? Yeah, that tends to happen. But yeah, anyway, the new movie, Superman, seems to touch on that with like what his internal struggles are. It seems to also focus on being accepted by humanity, because here comes, I mean, if you think about it, the idea of Superman's great. I mean, for the most part, he's a non-interventionist when it comes to governments, aside from the fact that, he's upholding truth and justice and, protecting the innocent, that sort of stuff. But if somebody like that came to our planet, someone who could absolutely destroy the planet, essentially, let alone the individual people and governments and societies within it, like, you can sure as hell bet that there would be some people worried about it. I mean, it's like nobody in the government can even sneeze without someone shouting tyranny. I mean, it's now most of the time it's just like kooks and crazy people that do that, but a lot of times there's enough people to influence the way we act as a people. But the movie seems to touch on that. It also seems to touch on the fact that he's a very sad character in the sense that he really is alone when you come down to it. Yeah, he does have people who love him, and the Kents are probably one of the best examples of a loving family accepting anyone who comes to them, because I mean, they took a random orphan child even after they found out he's an alien. They loved him just the same and raised him as their own, and which is something that we should all kind of cherish and strive to in this day and age, being able to accept people as if they were one of us, without prejudice, in a sense, aside from reasonable suspicions, like, somebody's expressed a desire to rob you and now suddenly they want to go into your house. Don't be stupid about it, but at the same time, it's hard to find that level of trust, I would say, in anything but maybe small communities. But yeah, the fact that there are no more of him, or there are in the comics, and you had like Zod and stuff, but there are no more Kryptonians. He was a victim of genocide, in a sense, although I believe it was naturally incurred, or although in some comics it was, if I'm not mistaken, in some versions of the story he was wiped out by a war or weapons. Others, it's just a natural occurrence of the sun exploding, and that's just another example of how the story changes. Actually, from what I remember, the original concept of Superman was that he was actually from Earth, but from far in the future, and was sent backwards in time. And I think that was before they actually made the first comic. That was just the concept design. But it would be very interesting if that was different, because thinking of him as just the idea of thinking of him as an alien, as an immigrant to our world, I think drastically changes how we perceive the character. Aside from those of us who just see him as a guy in tights flying around punching things. And, okay, it looks okay from the inside. I'll probably open it up to get a ladder or something up there. And, you know, let me add a little wood base here. What do we got? That. But yeah, so Superman looks pretty good. New Star Trek movie, of course, I'm excited about. That's nobody should be surprised about that. I do like the take that they're doing where there is more action, but as I've read from other commenters and people talking about the movie, there's it definitely needs to try to keep that aspect of social commentary, which the first Star Trek movie, not the first Star Trek movie, the first remake movie that J.J. Abrams did, kind of had that to a degree. It just with just as one of the examples, like when Nero's ship got when they blew up the Vulcan ship and Nero's ship got stuck in the black hole that was forming, he did offer to help, and that's kind of something that you don't see often, that you probably should more, that you can be enemies with somebody, you can not like somebody, somebody could have caused you great harm, but that's not an excuse to not act in a humanitarian manner. Because it's, in a way, it's, you know, lead by example. And a lot of people, in at least the way you see it portrayed in media and stuff, is they have that aspect to them, but only to the point that they're getting something in return from the, you know, just in kind. Very few times you see people who act in a humanitarian manner to somebody who's not trying to act in a humanitarian manner to them. And like, you think, well, it's obvious if somebody's trying to kill me, I'd want to stop them. I'd want to, you know, if I had to, I'd kill them first, that sort of thing. But it's just a cycle, I guess. I mean, that seems like a basic animalistic response, I suppose, where and not that that's bad. I mean, animalistic responses are what make sure we eat properly and you know, remember to go to the bathroom on time, stuff like that. You know, just those basic life functions, I guess. But the things that it's hard to find examples where people strive to part from that, I guess, in order to set an example so that not necessarily everyone acts in that way, but so everyone that observes it acts better. And I mean, you do have examples, you know, people lying down in front of tanks, or you know, well, like, you know, normal or typical American examples like Martin Luther King, where, you know, it wasn't the point wasn't to combat the people who hated you, it's to make the people who hated you accept you and respect you as an equal. And you don't have to do that by meeting people on their terms. I mean, there probably are a few people and examples where that just won't work within the context of what's happening, but I think with, say, like an individual dictator, for example, you might get that point, you might get to that point, rather, where you know, you're trying to set the example, and them in their limited capacity and limited lifespan is essentially rejecting that and acting on their own, or in their own way regardless, you know, where they will cause harm to you even though you're refusing to harm them. And like, I can understand, you know, needing to protect yourself from that kind of attitude where, at least within the limited context of a particular event, you're not going to be able to change it. But it does set a precedence, I guess, where people see that there's another way to act, and on the scope of society and of people, I think that does more good than just responding in kind to someone to protect yourself. It's but that's, I guess, easy to point out that people aren't necessarily rather willing to bet their life just on a chance that it might do some greater good. But certainly we do recognize and celebrate those that have. Martin Luther King Jr. being a perfect example. And you have other isolated acts, like, Gandhi did something similar for his country against, like, the British. And lots of other individual events. Plenty of stories, I guess, of people who, like in cities, with gang warfare going on, that you have people that just stop the violence by refusing to participate in it, and it does work a lot of the times. I mean, yes, people still get hurt, and it doesn't necessarily work immediately, but over the with the passage of time, people start to realize that there is another way, even when they're trapped believing that there's not. I don't know. It's interesting. It could be cultural too. It's possible there are some cultures that just don't come to that conclusion. But I'd like to think it's possible for all of humanity. I'm optimist in that regard. Let's see. I gotta chop these up. And I don't even remember how I got to that point, talking about Superman. But aside from that, and Star Trek, I would love to see a Deadpool movie. One done right, obviously. And usually that means doing everything about movie making wrong. But it could work. I have high hopes. Ryan Reynolds did a passable job as Deadpool, a fairly decent one. He didn't get to be the full crazy Deadpool, like in the Hulk vs. Wolverine movies, but or movie, I should say. Yeah, that's an interesting character too, Wolverine. He's very far from being anywhere near the most powerful character in the Marvel universe, even in the DC universe, but he is easily at the very top of one of the most deadly. Just that dynamic that plenty of other heroes and villains can throw Wolverine around like a rag doll. But there's not many people in the comic books, maybe Hulk, possibly one or two other, that can survive an honest-to-goodness, adamantium claw attack from Wolverine. And that puts him in an interesting position as a character. And that's, I think, what helps is the, I think I'm going to get some red brick and try that for the fireplace. I think that puts him in a interesting place. And actually, I was saying that it helps that he's kind of written where he's not necessarily immoral, but amoral at times. Where, yeah, he does have codes that he follows sometimes, but he's also just as violent and reckless. I think I will keep the cap on here. Violent and reckless as some of the worst villains. I think it's sad to say, as someone being preferably non-violent, but the best Wolverine, the best way to write him, is as a hero who might have caused more harm to heroes than villains have, just because he is the type who will strike back. And he's lived a long time, a couple hundred years, I think, born in the 19th century, I think. Don't remember exactly. Been through just about every American war, plus several others. But he's lived so long and lost so many people over essentially multiple lifetimes. And even though in some points he's forgotten that, and I opened it up again. It's even though with some stories he's forgotten that, it's like he carries that with him, even though he doesn't remember losing all these people necessarily, all the people who've tried to be his family. It seems to stay with him, and I think multiple lifetimes worth of losing friends and family, sometimes at your own hands too. That's another interesting aspect to Wolverine, is he's caused as much harm to himself through his friends and family that other people have caused to him. And which I guess is a good commentary, how we have to be aware of our own destructive tendencies. And the problem with reality is it's often more subtle. It's not, I accidentally sliced somebody up with my adamantium claws. It's like, I'm slightly depressed about my position in life, and it's making me choose poorly with options that might improve that. I'm turning down this job because I don't think I'm capable of doing it, or I'm worried I might not be capable of doing it, even though I should be able to. And it's odd to think of Wolverine like that, but in a way he is. Like, some of his apathy towards what happens in the world around him, and even some of his excessive aggression, probably only matched by the Hulk, is from that. From almost like an insecurity that not necessarily he'll lose something, but that he might be the reason that he loses something. And that's why it's always interesting to me when he usually finds people that kind of attach themselves to him, that they usually seem young, which I guess is, this person is either naive, or they just, well, mostly they just don't have the experience to understand that some people have to deal with that. Like Jubilee, for example, or like Rogue, when they retold the story and Rogue kind of became his his bright spot, in the sense that it was somebody he saw as like a adopted child, sort of, not literally. I don't know. Wolverine's companions, I guess, are always in odd spots. They're usually physical targets or sexual targets, and not that he's overly promiscuous, but sometimes he is, I guess. But he does have this side that's repressed, I think, and it just, I don't know, it seems to mirror how people subtly kind of sabotage themselves, where he wants to believe in that naive nature that, like, say, Jubilee brings to his life. It's going back years, or, whoever his current young sidekick is. But, he kind of wants to believe in that, but his experience has taught him not better, but just led him to that conclusion that it's not necessarily possible, even though he grasps at that from time to time. But it's probably just over-analysis on my part, because you can do that with anything. I don't know if anyone that I know of has stopped to really think about it in those terms, but you can take any character, no matter how shallow, and start to apply that on a grander term. And it's not necessarily the way the character was designed, or the character wasn't designed for that purpose, but it's kind of like philosophy, in this sense that with philosophy, the idea is just to take something basic. Well, okay, it's not necessarily the point of philosophy, but in practice, this is how it seems to be. Take something basic, something that might even have a simple answer, but keep redefining things until you wind up at a point where you don't understand anything. in practice, this, and it's probably just amateurs that practice it this way, but that seems to be the common trend. And I will say it's probably just like an amateur, it's probably just the amateurish trend towards philosophy. Like me, I don't really care about philosophy except as a thought experiment. Like as a thought experiment, I see its importance. Well, like now, it's talking about things, you're extrapolating things from objects, characters, stories that aren't necessarily there, but it's causing you to think in ways that you wouldn't normally think if you just gave it a passing notice. Like, oh yeah, Wolverine, he's a character with claws that slices things. I get that. But when you start to analyze interactions and intent that isn't explicitly stated, you get to a point to, wow, there's so many ways I can see this character. There's so many things that he could represent. And some of those things, some of those conclusions you reach might give you insight into other things in your life or with other people you meet. And that's kind of the point of philosophy, I believe, just that thought experiment to make you realize things that were not expressly designed to be realized from whatever the topic is you're talking about. That's my basic understanding of philosophy as a practice. Aside from the laws, well, not literal laws of philosophy, but the established traditions of philosophy from, like Socrates and Plato and all that. That's probably like a separate thing, I guess. And the moon. I'm trying to think what to do with this hut. I think I'll fill in this back window. Add a little sub room or two for the beds. Bunk beds. Bunk beds are very important. Bunk beds in a tree fort is approaching the level of awesomeness one should not have on their own. Because a bunk bed is almost like a tree fort. It's made out of wood, and it can be a fort. You can also put a sheet over it, so you're just on the lower level, wrapped around, and you just pretend like it's a spaceship. That's always fun. I'm mixing my interest again. Let's see, is that enough for a bed? Yeah, that is. Let's fill that in. And a window there. So let's see, I got a bed. I'll make a few more though. Oh, energy would be nice. Okay, the music in this game is just... I think that's what contributes it to being a relaxing game. Oh. Well, we need daytime anyway. I think I know how to resolve this issue. I don't know if I have to stack it higher or not. Oh, look at that. See? Bunk bed. Look at that. Right there. I just need to be in, like 5th or 6th grade and invite a friend over. We'll have a grand old time. That seemed to be a popular time for sleepovers. Well, pretty much the whole 3rd to 6th grade, I guess. Nowadays, it's, when you're older, it's not really sleepovers, it's crashing. Friend crashes at your house. And I guess a lot of circles, it's usually because the friend is drunk, but, it's not always the case. It depends on the circle of friends, I suppose. And there we go. Put another one here. It's not meant to be a room, it's just meant to be like a lodge, so I think this will kind of fit in with the theme. It's cramped, walk in, sleep, hop out, and then, let's see, I'll have a fireplace here. I think I'll have an exit and like a little sitting area, and I did a little circly thing. Make it kind of like a little, what do you get? Like, you know, put like a little table, chairs, some flowers. Luckily, you don't have to water the video game flowers, because they'd be dead and rotting by now. I put some outside of a Totoroon shop. Looks pretty nice. Oh. And let's see where we're at. Kind of a high ceiling. That's good, though. I can put lights, which should have some on me. Should I just... There we go. That's kind of neat. I might have to change it around so I can rig some sort of switch, or just leave them on all the time. I'm not really too worried about the realism of having a light switch. I think I can do without that. Oh, I'm not as far back as I thought I was. Okay, I think I'll stop it here for now. I might finish up the lighting and then call it quits. Alright, everyone have again, all of like 2 people maybe. Have a good day, good evening, good whatever. Or a bad one, depending on your mood, I suppose. Sometimes it's nice to have a bad day, it changes things up. And there they are, look at the lights. I can see the light. Bulb. Thingy. Alright. You guys have a good one.